Alex Abella is our guest in this short segment. He's going to get into some more of his discoveries in more modern times of RAND Corporation getting us into Iraq and other wars. Then starting in the next segment, for several more segments, we'll talk to Matt, William, John, Ryan, Steve, and others. But no group in the globalist social engineering hierarchy, the master architects of the New World Order, do you find an organization more powerful, more influential than RAND? RAND was basically given the quarterbacking job by the Ford Foundation and Carnegie Endowment to set up this corporate world government that collectivizes us through a fake free market controlled within a false paradigm of consumerism. But it's a spectrum they control, where they destroy our values, our true rights, our true wealth, and give us baubles instead. Alex Abella, you wanted to get into Iraq and some of the more modern chapters with the RAND Corporation.
Right, because, I mean, that is such a prime example of what they are doing. I mean, you know, for crying out loud, you know, we're still in Iraq, right? We still have, I think, 50,000 over there. And, you know, we're still in Afghanistan. A lot of people are asking themselves, well, what the hell are we doing there? And then, of course, it all goes back to 9/11, then goes back as well to Desert Storm. And, you know, it's RAND. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth. It's people who came out of RAND. I specifically want to point out one gentleman who perhaps your listeners will be aware of. His name is Andrew Marshall, who is the head of the Office of Net Assessment. He's been in the Pentagon since 1973, and every president, including President Obama right now, has reconfirmed him in his post. And what is his post? To dream up new weapons. He's the kind of guy who came up with the whole concept of, you know, the Star Wars approach to missiles. You know, we went into Iraq, and we bombed the capital in Baghdad, and the whole concept, you know, of exoskeletons for people, for soldiers, of
drugging troops. He's the one that ordered West Point to make everybody read Starship Troopers, the book.
Absolutely. Yes, he's the one who's like leading us. He's like the leading light. The man is in his late 80s. He's almost 90 right now, and he's still there. He looks like something out of science fiction, only it's science fact. And he's still there, and he was one of the founders of RAND, who came up with, you know, with the whole concept of the military-industrial complex, who developed it right from the 1940s and the 1950s. He was there. He was one of the advisors to the Gator Report, for crying out loud.
And he wants to inject all the troops with mind control drugs. That's even in Wired magazine. He says it won't be what weapons they have, but what drugs they're on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the whole rationale for going into Iraq, for going into Desert Storm back in the 80s, which you have to remember, this all dates back to the 1980s, is again, you know, you can trace it directly to RAND studies that came out in the early 70s, saying after the problem with the 1973 with the embargo, the oil embargo, says the United States has to take control of the Middle East. I mean, in so many words, if they want to, whether it's directly or indirectly with the United States forces there, or indirectly through friendly regimes that will do as the United States bids. And it's been a constant in their thinking, and they're still at it.
But when they say USA, they mean the corporate elite that uses us as their muscle.
Exactly. I mean, because USA to them is the small group of technocrats who, of course, you know, disguises itself as a democratically elected government, but says we are the ones who actually know what the questions are and what the answers should be.
Well, that's what Carroll Quigley said. He said, we control both parties. We give the illusion of change. And by controlling the leadership, we can continually move our agenda towards world government down the road.
And isn't it true? Isn't that what we're seeing all around us?
And then meanwhile, the media will admit world government's here, but say it's the solution to all our problems, but then demonize those of us that say there's a world government. They say we're crazy, it doesn't exist. I mean, if that isn't mind control, I don't know what is. Alex Abella is our guest, alexabella.com. We have links to him up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. He's an amazing researcher with key intel on the globalist internal operations. We'll be right back with your phone calls on the other side on the GCN Radio Network. Alex Abella, one of the leading experts on the RAND Corporation, Emmy-nominated news producer, best-selling author, is our guest. AlexAbella.com is the website. Alex, I want to go to calls, but I wanted to get into one other issue. And for listeners that are new listeners, they won't believe this when I say it. So, guys, search engine right now Google acquires company that can predict the future. But I remember going back to declassified corporate and government documents from even 40 years ago, where they said we've got to have the uniform product code, and then they wanted biometrics in the 90s to track every purchase you make, RFID on all the products. Now search engines using NSA keyword technology to be able to search the third dimension, not just cyberspace, but to be able to search the real world, and Google Street View and all of that is just one facet of that. And they now say they can predict mass movements by 99%. In fact, there's the headline, Google invested in company that predicts the future. No one saw it coming. Yeah, right. And, of course, that's a Pentagon-admitted funded group, and the company they bought. Also, Google admits they're basically CIA, NQTEL funded just 11 years ago with total dominance now. And you go back to the Rand Corporation in the 60s, and your book talks about this, and you talk about this in the interview we did with you out in California last week when I sent a crew out there, that they said that was key to track and surveil everyone, not so much to know what people are doing because they might be terrorists, that's just the cover, but to understand our hopes and dreams so they can learn what propaganda is working and to literally predict the future.
To a very large degree, that's correct, yes. Yeah, of course, you have to remember, another one of Rand's beautiful inventions was the spy satellite. We can also thank them for that. So, today Google uses that spy satellite to be able to really, observe everything that we do, down to, not down to the street level, from above, from below. They're tracking our movements everywhere. It's awful. It's really awful, and we really have to do something about it.
And you also talk about how they try to discover every individual's sellout price.
Right. Well, they figure that since everyone is a consumer, everyone then has his own price. That there is a level at which they will go on and do things that they might not otherwise conceive of. Again, it goes back to the same rationale that people are just consumers, that people are just creatures that buy and enjoy, instead of being thinking people that perhaps believe in God, that believe in family, and that believe in their own country.
And then they can find everyone's price and basically get people to literally sell their intellect, their souls, their identity to these people. Let's take a phone call. Matt in Minnesota, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex and Alex, how's it going?
Good. Go ahead.
Hey, hi.
Hi, yeah. InfoWars actually ran an article a couple of years ago in October, and it was about Rand Corporation lobbying the Pentagon to start a war in order to save the collapsing economy.
Well, that has always been a tenet of the Rand Corporation. They have always said that. Not necessarily in so many words, but they have always said, there's nothing like a good war to stimulate the economy. And they point to the Second World War. They point, to Vietnam, and not to mention, like I said, we were talking about before, the Iraq War. All the money.
Well, war is the health of the state.
Yes, it's a state of perpetual war.
Just like
I agree. We are definitely in perpetual war right now, and I'm wondering if there's anything new like that out of Rand Corporation recently, where they're asking for war, asking for this and that.
Well, they wouldn't put it in so many words at this point. They're not that obvious. But what they do say is that they advocate intervention in certain places, etc. For instance, in Afghanistan, they have links right now with think tanks in Afghanistan. They've been there since the very beginning. After we went in and deposed the Taliban in 9/11, they have constant communications with them. They have a base in Qatar, in the Arab Emirates. They're already trying to change again the culture of the place. I mentioned that in the book, and that they're going after the educational system. They were invited by the emir of Qatar, and they're trying to change the whole way in which the Middle East thinks about the world. In other words, which is not that they think that they're with it. They think that the Middle East right now is so wonderful, but they're trying to change it into the consumer mold. So instead of making the things that are autochthonous to the region, that are good in the region, come out, they're trying to shape them into little Western consumers.
Instead of valuing true freedom, which creates incredible wealth, they give them fake free market consumerism, which then financially destroys us in the end. They tell us get into debt. All of this designed by these people. Matt, great point. Appreciate your call. William in Florida, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Please keep me on hold after the question because I can only listen on the phone. But my question is, when Alex was reading all of these documents, did he get any sense of hubris from these people? Obviously, they're very smart people at the Rand Corporation.
Hubris is their middle name, sir. That's exactly. I mean, obviously, what do you expect from people who think that they know all the answers?
Oh,
Anybody who tends to doubt them is cast out, among the unbelievers. They know everything. So the hubris is right there, right from the very first papers that they have ever written.
But do you think it indicates any kind of weakness, or do you really think that they do know everything?
I do not think that they know.
No, they don't know everything, but they're scientifically studying and categorizing human behavior in their own words to know how to manipulate us.
Exactly. And that's why they even set up, the Department of Social Sciences. Originally, they were just, Iran was set up to develop new weapons of destruction. But they realized that in order to develop and to carry out and to take out the weapons of destruction, they had to rely on people. In order to have people be able to deliver these things, they had to convince the people that this is what they should do. So that's what they set up.
And they learned how to do psychological testing to get police officers with low IQs that enjoy brutality. They learned how to find specialized psychological types to fill in their compartmentalized system it with the types of people they need. I appreciate your call.